Greetings to everyone, wishing you all abundant energy, peace, and hearts always filled with love. One of the important goals of our practice is to create peaceful energy, living peacefully in every moment of our lives. No matter what dharma or method we practice, the ultimate goal is still to attain a peaceful soul. And one of the conditions that, in my experience, is necessary to maintain peace of mind is to first balance our mind. The energy we expend must be proportionate to the energy we take in. But looking at real life, we see that we give out more than we take in. We have to resolve many issues, face many difficulties, and deal with many different situations. The places that drain our energy the most are work and our loved ones, until we finally go to bed, and only then do we have a chance for ourselves. But many people don't even allow that. They go to bed and still listen to music, use their phones, chat, and stay online until they're completely exhausted and drift off to sleep without even realizing it. We might show ourselves some love by listening to Dharma talks, but listening to Dharma talks isn't necessarily fulfilling a need in our heart, and it's not necessarily what our entire soul needs. And that's not even considering whether our body needs to hear or take in anything more. Sometimes it just needs rest. Up to this point, we haven't really loved ourselves much. We've only loved our desires. As for truly loving ourselves, knowing what our body needs, what our soul needs in order to be balanced, to be relaxed and at ease, to be at peace, it seems we haven't done that yet. We haven't really paid attention because we love others so much, or so we think. We love our husbands, our children, our wives, our employees, our friends, our relatives, but there's one person we haven't loved ourselves. We still follow society's mindset, which is to focus outwards continuously from the moment we wake up until we go to bed. It seems we're always thinking about someone or something, or thinking about work, but never about whether our body is healthy, whether it needs rest, what kind of food it needs, whether it's healthy or unhealthy, whether it needs meditation, whether it needs to stop thinking, whether it needs peace. It means we're in a state of imbalance, focusing too much outwards and too little inwards. That's the first imbalance, a common situation for us. That imbalance, that's our common state. In the morning, we have a lot of energy, laughing and saying, working so diligently. But by noon, we start to get a little irritable, and by evening, we're completely drained. All sorts of things happen, and you know that when our energy is depleted, afflictions develop very quickly. It's fertile ground for afflictions to arise. We can't control our emotions. We can't control our words and actions. We know we see our situation very clearly, but it seems we haven't seen it deeply enough to make a strong decision to change the situation. And it's clear that on days with a lot of work, a lot of customer contact, meeting many people, resolving many issues, it's as if we deflate in the afternoon like a balloon losing air. And when our energy is low, our perception becomes distorted and inaccurate. I'm sure you all remember, as the famous saying of the Buddha goes, our mind is like this. That's how we perceive reality. When our mind is full of energy, everything seems okay. But when it's depleted, everything seems unstable and not okay. Okay, but at least a practitioner should be aware of this. When we see an unpleasant object, when we don't accept it, when we want to reject it, that's when we're running out of energy. We need to be aware of that. If we haven't cultivated ourselves to the point where we can always generate abundant energy, at least when our energy drops, we need to recognize it and not rely on our perception at that moment. Don't trust it. It's not accurate. So when we see an object that's no longer pleasant, even though it seemed lovely before, the same goes for work. We used to enjoy it, but then we no longer like it. Don't immediately trust your mind. We need to step back and find a place to bring our body and mind back into balance, to stabilize our energy. Then our perception may change. So if we're just trying to grasp things and achieve success without thinking about happiness, we don't need to think about balance. Just pour all our energy into the work or object that we want to seize. But if we care about the value of happiness, and that happiness must be sustainable, happiness that comes from inner peace, then we must establish a lifestyle that balances our outward focus with time spent turning inward. Before we talk about turning inward, we need to address the basics. That is, we need to live a structured life with a schedule, proper timing, and regular sleep and moderate work. When we feel tired, we need to rest. As the musician Tren Kongsan said, "Too tired, these legs seek a chair to rest." When tired, rest. But when we carry a backpack and walk dozens of miles, we immediately know when we're tired. When we can't go any further, we need to find a place to sit and rest, right? But when we're working, it's so engaging that we don't feel tired after 10 hours or even a dozen. We're not tired yet with the work we love. That taps into our talents. That touches our ego. Or when we sit with a loved one every day and don't feel bored. It's just that we're being overwhelmed by emotions. The truth is, there's an energy collapse, exhaustion, loss, and fatigue inside. Success is important, but success without happiness is meaningless. So we have projects and plans that need to be implemented. We have aspirations and ambitions, and we should pursue them. But how can we establish a balance between the energy we expend each day and the energy we replenish? As I said, besides living a structured life with a schedule and knowing how to take care of our body, we also need to know how to take care of our soul. In my experience, meditation is one of the effective methods to regain the energy we've spent during the day. Half an hour of meditation isn't enough. You need to meditate continuously, expanding meditation everywhere we live. Wherever we live, interact and work, we need to meditate. The second imbalance we're facing is between activity and stillness, between being too outward focused and not inward focused enough. Too much outward focus and not enough inward focus is our second problem. That's because you're too outward focused, so there's too much activity and too little stillness. It's very little. And if you've done Vipassana meditation, you know the state when you calm your mind and worries and anxieties subside, then your mind becomes very clear, very clear. It can see everything very accurately. If there's balance, clarity will naturally follow. But when we're active, and here active refers to both the body and the mind, when we move too much, chase after things too much, when we're focused outward to grasp too much, it means we have to use a lot of afflictions to solve problems. We have to get angry, roar, and smash things. Bang tables, break chairs, get angry, be jealous, and so on. Only then can we stand firm and manage something. Then our mind is very active, always hurried, always rushed, always anxious. Because our mind is active, afflictions have the opportunity to arise a lot. When our mind is still, afflictions will subside. Even if we can't completely release afflictions, we must at least have the skill to calm afflictions as much as possible during the day. Of course, when we work, when we go to the office, we have to accept the active environment. But if we know how to skillfully bring meditation into life, even in activity, we can still be still. We can separate ourselves from others and find a space to be still. Or even when interacting with people, interacting with work, we can still be still. Of course, being still in a still space is even better. And when we have balance between activity and stillness, we can immediately recognize someone who is active. Always restless, always fidgety, always looking outward to grab something. But when we are in stillness, we have a certain degree of peace. And when we have that peace, we can deeply connect with the wonderful values that are present around us. For example, when we drink tea, we just focus on drinking tea. That state is called the state of stillness. When we eat, we just focus on eating without thinking about anything else. When we work, we just focus on the work. That even though the body is active, the mind remains still. And when the mind is still, of course, the quality is very high. Whether we're interacting or working, the quality is also very high. So if you see that your stillness is too little, you should build it up, develop it more. By becoming still, we can support reducing activity, which means using less phone, less computer, internet, less contact with unnecessary things during a certain period. Of course, when our mind is stable and firm, we can interact with anything. But when our mind is still weak and too active, we must find it still and pleasant things that don't continue to stir up the activity within us. And also, we must find a space of stillness because our mind also needs the environment. Bring it to a still space so that the body and mind can be still together. Looking at a person with a balanced mind, we can easily recognize their lightness. Relaxation. Relaxation signals balance. But if we're stressed, it signals that something is out of balance, meaning we want too much, we have unnecessary wants that are not appropriate. So our inner strength is not enough to receive them. Therefore, we become stressed and tired. When we relax, it means accepting the present, seeing what's in the present moment. There are many precious things to cherish, preserve, and enjoy. The future isn't too important. The future is necessary, but not too important. Be devoted to the present moment, so it's very comfortable and relaxing. The Buddha said the past is gone, and the future hasn't arrived yet. Contemplate the present moment. Wisdom is here. Don't dwell on the past. Don't imagine the future. Reside in the present. Wisdom is here. Enlightenment never exists in the future. It happens in the moment of now. During meditation, Vipassana meditation, the part where you look back at yourself is less than the part where you look at yourself in this moment. Because when you look back, you have to think and contemplate. Imagine what you've said and done in the past. You can use right thought. You can contemplate. But the Buddha advises us to limit that part, use less right thought, and instead we use right mindfulness. Right mindfulness is not thinking, it's feeling the objects around us or within us at this moment. This moment is called present mindfulness. Present mindfulness is at this moment only, not a minute ago or an hour ago. If we live in present mindfulness, more often wisdom has a chance to arise. So the next balance is between looking back and looking at yourself in reality in this moment. But most of us tend to look back at ourselves, looking back at what we've done, said, and thought whenever we cause suffering to someone, whenever we're criticized or blamed by someone, or someone is angry with us, we do look. But when looking back, meditation doesn't advise us to look back much, but to look at this moment. What's happening in our mind? What's happening in our stream of our feelings? What's happening in our body? That's what we need to know. Earlier we said that we focus too much on the outside and not enough on the inside. But you know, many people are also very introverted because they focus too much inward and don't know what to do, just sitting there thinking, imagining, analyzing, dissecting, explaining, reasoning. But that doesn't help much, just a little. When looking back at yourself, when looking inward, looking at this moment is more important. And when you choose an object in the present to focus on, to connect with, to touch, to enjoy, then relaxation will happen. Meaning you have plans and projects, but slowly enjoy the present moment first. The present is also great, very miraculous. And this present is what we dreamed of in the past, and it's manifesting for us. Why are we indifferent? Why are we apathetic and believe that what's about to happen is more appealing? The Buddha said, don't seek and you will find. Don't seek happiness and you will find it. It's very different from our view that we must grasp more to have happiness. Happiness. The happiness. The pursuit of happiness is a basic right of American citizens when we pledge to become an American citizen. That phrase is there. And our whole lives, we keep searching from one thing to another, never feeling satisfied. I get satisfaction, but it's fleeting. I never pause long enough to savor it, to be aware of something. The Buddha Eos said we already have all the conditions for happiness. We just need to stop and connect deeply to find happiness, because happiness belongs to the soul, to the mind, not dependent on external values or objects that we try to grasp. They might bring us a bit of a feeling of pleasure, comfort, enjoyment, but it vanishes quickly because our mind is very fickle. It likes something, then it doesn't. It wants something, then it doesn't. If we follow it, we suffer. That's why happiness is so fleeting. So the Buddha said, instead of following our minds, tame them. It's possible to make it want less, demand less, and teach it to appreciate and be content with what we have. Neuroscientists in the US, like Thich Hansen, have formed research groups on the nervous system. They've found that human happiness is divided into 3 levels. The first level is contentment. When content, the nervous system is very relaxed, calm, and comfortable. It far surpasses satisfaction. Satisfaction is when the nervous system is very active and tense. Actually, we practice to end suffering, but when we do good deeds, we shouldn't focus on that. The main task of someone doing good is to be mindful. Be constantly aware and let that awareness, that mindfulness, solve suffering, because the suffering we detect is just a symptom. The product has already been released, but the manufacturer is inside the 5 aggregates mechanism. If we don't touch this mechanism and just sit there trying to anticipate the products it releases, we'll never solve it. So, the beauty of doing good is that we don't solve the symptoms of suffering, but we build constant awareness. When it's strong enough, it adjusts the 5 aggregates and suffering ceases to arise. That's it. But the process is very difficult. The difficulty is that we often meddle in our suffering to control and manage it. So we keep trying to eliminate it, but it keeps arising. The more we practice, the more suffering we have, because we're practicing in the wrong way. So whether we tame the ox or not isn't that important. What's important is that we have awareness and mindfulness. Sooner or later, it will be tamed. So, when we practice, we lose our balance. There's nothing to be ashamed of. If anger arises, there's nothing to worry about. It's not that I'm encouraging you to get angry, but don't be afraid when you experience anger. Don't be confused. Don't blame yourself or even punish yourself. Treat yourself kindly. The important thing is to promptly return to your practice. the method you're practicing to rebuild awareness, to build mindfulness again, because you've allowed suffering to arise. It's signaling that your mindfulness is weak. If you ask me if I'm content with what I have, the answer is no. But if I'm not content, how can I tell others to be content? And in reality, although I'm not content, I'm still content, but not yet content. It's a bit confusing. There are many things I cherish, many things I want to do. I remember Steve Jobs saying that when you do something truly meaningful, once you're done, get up and do something else. Don't just sit there dwelling on that joy, satisfied with it, and then stop. That's basically it. Of course, when you want to do something else, you need energy first. You need to recharge before doing more. Otherwise, you'll end up wanting to do something, but not having the strength. Your desire is too big, but your strength can't keep up. That's called being powerless despite wanting to do something. We just finished a project. We need to rest and recharge before continuing. After the Hoa Dao season ended, I'm sure everyone here knows that the masters and students split up, each going their own way to rest. Some friends went to the Bar-out meditation forest in Myanmar, while I went all the way to the west to rest. Actually, when I went there, I realized that I was losing a lot of energy in Vietnam. Over there, I also had to deal with many things, like starting new projects, and I even wrote a book. After writing a book, I spent time on myself to cultivate myself. But I still had a lot of time, so I observed and realized that when I'm abroad, the Vietnamese community isn't very close. I'm right in the Western community, so I'm hardly aware of outside information. No one comes to ask for advice or organize continuous meditation retreats. I don't have to do projects, raise anyone, or handle anything. So I have a lot of extra energy, which is why I dared to come back for 3 weeks and give 2 or 3 dozen Dharma talks. But I caught a cold and lost a lot of that energy. When I'm in Vietnam, I have to deal with so much, taking the heat for so many things. So it wasn't until I went abroad that I truly realized that I didn't have enough energy. When I'm here, I see it, but I don't really see it. So, speaking of cultivation, I still have a lot to cultivate. But I'm very happy with what I have. Sometimes I think, what I have is more due to fate than personal effort. I'm being honest, what I have in my spiritual life is more due to the blessings of the land than my own personal efforts. So I'm very happy. I didn't even think I could achieve such values. And when I share my experiences with the community, and the community accepts practices and achieves results beyond my expectations, what more could I ask for? Of course, I'd like to have more people in the community and for my experiences to reach further. But I also know how to accept fate. Although Confucius said you should know your destiny by 50, I'm only 40 years old, and I already know my destiny. I understand the workings of the universe and how to view the world. I know how to look far and wide, and I know how to follow the principles of the universe and adapt to circumstances. So everything depends on karma and conditions. You can't just sit there and wish for things to happen. But if you ask if I want things, yes, I do. But it doesn't pressure me. It doesn't make me lose the opportunity to enjoy what I have. It doesn't make me lose my balance or lose my relaxation. So I'm truly content, but I still want more. I still want more, but I repeat, I won't let that desire make me lose my contentment. The second value is inner peace. According to neuroscientists in the US, it's the second highest state of happiness after contentment. Inner peace comes from within. Westerners now really like to use the word inner. Inner means inside. For example, they use the term inner power, which means internal strength, power from within. Instead of just using power, which means you have authority and people have to listen to you. They have to obey and respect you. That's having power. But Westerners now, they crave that, they desire that inner strength. But how? You master yourself, including unnecessary desires and fleeting emotions, your dark thoughts and afflictions. Mastering them is true power. That's what's truly called inner power. It's the strength within, knowing that what you shouldn't do, you definitely don't do. Knowing what you should do and doing it at all costs. That's inner strength. That's inner power. So, inner peace is the same. It's peace that comes from within. We also have peace, but it's peace that comes from the outside. Others bring us peace. Circumstances bring us peace because everyone treats us kindly. Our work is stable. Everyone loves us. Nothing happens. There are no problems, no incidents. So our minds are very easily at peace, right? That's external peace, conditional peace. But the Buddha said we can achieve a higher level of peace. That's inner peace, when you no longer want anything. In the Mahayana scriptures, it says, desire peace, and you will have peace immediately. If you don't want to, or don't want enough, if you only want a little, 10% or 30%, how can you have peace? If you still want so many things, not less, from the outside, and you still want someone to make you feel at peace by saying sweet things and flattering you, then you'll have peace immediately. If you still crave food too much, right? If you still crave recognition and admiration too much, how can you find inner peace? When we look outward to find peace, the mechanism for establishing inner peace will automatically shut down and can't be processed. And when you accept letting go of the attractive feelings from the outside, turn inward, let go of the desire for peace. In Confucianism, there's a saying, knowing contentment brings contentment. Being content brings leisure. Wanting fulfillment, be fulfilled right now. Don't postpone it. Who knows when you'll be fulfilled? Want leisure. want to be relaxed and carefree, then be carefree right now. Just let go of what's inside and you'll be carefree. That's all you need, no more conditions. But we always think that being carefree means solving this, and that before we can be carefree. That's external peace. Inner peace means you don't need to solve anything. If there's something to solve, let it be. Inside, let go of desires, even the smallest ones. For example, I'm talking to you all, and the voice keeps crackling and is hard to hear, so suddenly a desire appears for my voice to be better. Immediately, even that very simple desire must be let go. Because everything still follows the laws of nature, the law of cause and effect. It has its reasons. Let it happen naturally. Why interfere? It seems the more we interfere, the more chaotic it becomes, the more damaged it becomes, the more worse it gets. Because our energy isn't stable. If we stick our nose into any story, we ruin that story. Even if we teach our children correctly, they'll get angry back at us. Even if we're correct, it doesn't mean it'll work. It also depends on our energy. So, inner peace is a very high value. You have to cultivate it to achieve it. Neuroscientists have discovered this, but they don't know how to do it. Fortunately, we've learned many of the Buddha's methods, including detachment, leading to joy and happiness. Just let go, and you'll have happiness. Concentration leads to joy and happiness. Mindfulness leads to joy and happiness. Just focus your mind and you'll have peace. Just observe all psychological phenomena without identifying with them, and you'll have peace. And the highest state in the mind that neuroscientists in the US have discovered is caring, which is concern, care, love, and sharing. Satisfaction isn't included in this list because satisfaction depends on external objects. Chasing an object, getting caught up in an object, having passion, having addiction. Satisfaction is about appreciating what you already have. But satisfaction ranks lower than inner peace, because inner peace doesn't need anything external. It turns inward, letting go of desires, and it remains. This inner peace still ranks below sharing, because inner peace still stands on the ego. It confines you to a small space, while sharing sees all beings around you as part of yourself, your Dharma body, miraculous values. They constantly nurture you, so you have a responsibility to nurture, to care for, to love. That's the highest level of peace and happiness one can achieve. So, the balance I want to talk about next is the balance between self-interest and benefiting others, between giving to yourself and giving to others. You might think you're living for others, for your spouse, children, parents, for your work, employees, boss, or customers. But that's not always the case. We need to examine it. When we truly care for someone, no matter what they do, we continue to love, nurture, and connect with them. But in reality, that might not be true. We always have conditions when we love or help someone. If you think, Master, I've helped someone without any conditions, I don't need them to repay me in any way, that's unconditional. I'd still say there are conditions, implicit conditions. The implicit condition is when that person turns against you, when they betray you, slander you, openly attack, insult you, or cause you suffering, can you still love and help them? So the condition, though unstated, is still implied. So it's not entirely for others. That's why the Buddha said we should live in this life with responsibility. But we haven't reached a level of completely living for others. It requires a period of self-cultivation. Self-benefit means taking good care of yourself, managing your afflictions, controlling your emotions, and mastering your afflictions. This process takes a long time. You need to soften yourself, become gentle, kind, full of energy and peace. Then, when you help someone, you're truly helping them. You're truly doing it for them. At that point, you're no longer acting from ego, but from unconditional love. So, if you find yourself constantly running around worrying about everyone, you need to slow down. You're serving your own desires. You're serving your ego's emotions. Instead of over-caring for them, you should spend more time caring for yourself. The question is that selfish? The answer is no. Because if you care for them less and become kinder, a better listener, less dictatorial, less annoying, less controlling, they might like that even more. That's what they need, not more care. If you care for someone too much, they might get scared or fed up. And you don't stop because you want to, but they don't. Honey, let me take care of you. No, that's enough. But you keep going. If you don't let me, how can I stand it? How will you know I love you? So you want to, but they don't. Right? When you help someone and they're not happy, peaceful or comfortable and don't see any practical positive benefits, then your help, that mistake is worthless, unnecessary, redundant, and leads to the burdens of our love. Sometimes all it takes is needing us to do nothing. Wouldn't it be strange if they said that? It's too much. Wouldn't it be unfilial if they said, Mom and Dad, don't help me anymore. Don't give me anything anymore. Wouldn't it be heartless if they said, Honey, don't take care of me anymore? But it's strange how every time we care for someone, we make them suffer. It's strange that every time we take care of someone, we make them suffer. It's because we often act in the name of love, relying on our feelings for that person. Then we do whatever we want, not knowing what they actually need. So, one thing that can help you find balance is to stop asking what you should do for them. Instead, ask yourself, what should I not do for them? What shouldn't be said? What shouldn't be done? It's not always about saying something. It's not always about doing something, right? Often, when people come to see me, I just need to sit quietly and drink tea. That's enough. There's no need to rush around worrying about cakes, tea, fruit, incense, flowers, lamps, candles, etc. There's no need. Often, Buddhists feel they need to do that, but the Master doesn't, because the Master has traveled far and is very tired and just wants to rest. But he can't exactly say, please go home early. It's awkward because people are waiting, but they have a certain expectation. If we recognize and fulfill that desire, they'll be incredibly happy. We don't even have to do much, and they're happy. But if you refuse and keep trying to do things that don't make them happy, it's loving without understanding, and often being unwilling to understand. Understanding, but then not being able to love. If love becomes a need, and you see it as indispensable, danger and suffering begin to appear. The other person might not be interested in your desires. Sometimes they need it, but the human mind is impermanent. Sometimes they don't need it. Sometimes they want you to care for them. Sometimes they want to take care of themselves. But we're used to it, so we always need to be cared for to feel secure. If we're not cared for, we feel insecure. So you have to ask yourself, what shouldn't I do to make the other person happier? Reduce the burden on the other person. It's not always about reducing it, because if you're doing it for them and they're not happy, then reduce it for yourself. The Buddha suggests we cultivate ourselves, purify our souls, and remove our afflictions before loving others. If you're miserable, why drag someone else into your life? What's the point of pulling them into your misery? Misery loves company. Few people who are suffering actually try to solve their own problems. They look for someone to share their suffering because they have a little money, a little beauty, a little talent, enough to keep someone around to endure their suffering. The day you marry that person is the day you ask them to take on your debt, not out of love. They're ignorant and blinded by your beauty or your assets. 2 years later, they realize the debt they have to repay is too enormous. Then you say, he's changed. He's two-faced. He's unfaithful. But you're not the same as you were in the beginning. You weren't faithful either. In the beginning, you were very sweet because you were hiding your debt. After 2 years, you couldn't hold it in anymore, and it had to come out. When it spills out, the other person isn't prepared. They're still living in a fantasy because of you, so when they see the real you, they're shocked. So, if you're a practitioner with good qualities, you should say, it's reasonable if you're tired of me, or it's reasonable if you're scared of me. If you avoid me, because I'm scared of myself too. I'm scared of myself, so how can I tell others not to be scared of me? That's why the Buddha said we must practice. You must cultivate yourselves, clean up your act. Clean up the mess inside. Fix up your home to make it decent. If it's not decent, at least make it tidy. Don't let it be crooked or messy. A chaotic house, a true home is in your heart. When you feel stable and have a firm footing, then love or help others. That means many of us often love someone or do charity work to help others simply because we can't handle our own internal mess. We can't resolve it. We don't dare to face ourselves, so we seek joy outside, even in the name of charity, social work, or love. Deep down, it's still loneliness, not knowing what else to do, not knowing how to feel valuable or useful. So we have to go through someone in need to feel valuable. That's not true normalcy. When you aim to help someone, but it doesn't come from the heart, there will be trouble. Complications arise. You can suppress it for a while, but then the annoyance will explode. The question is, have I been selfish for too long? People out there need love. When will I help? It's not necessary to be selfish for 5 or 10 years or become enlightened before helping. Help when you're stable. But when you feel unbalanced, turn inward and help yourself. That's it. When you feel relaxed, peaceful, and happy, do something or more that benefits others. And that will surely be a true benefit. If you're suffering, feeling insecure, and losing energy, please don't help anyone. First, to avoid causing them trouble. Second, so you don't misunderstand that you're being kind. You're not really kind. You're borrowing someone else to find joy, to find balance, to reduce sorrow. That's not kindness. Zen Master Zhaozhou in China said, ordinary mind is the way. Have you heard that? Ordinary mind is the way, meaning the ultimate goal of cultivation, according to Master Zhaozhou, is not to become enlightened or a saint, but to reach the level of an ordinary mind. That means we are not normal. Do you admit that? Sunny in the morning, rainy in the afternoon, and it's only morning and afternoon. 1 minute it's sunny, the next it's raining like the weather in Mio Vac. Happy one moment, sad the next. Like it, then don't. Close, then hate. Want to do it, then don't. According to Zen Master Zhaozhou, an ordinary mind is one without love, hate, or distinguishing between good and bad. Loving all objects, accepting all circumstances. How can you do that? Of course you can't right now. You're just dabbling in cultivation, doing it on and off. How can you do it? Before, you only listened to lectures, memorized all the teachings of the masters, but haven't put in the effort, haven't started practicing. How can you do it? Because we practice Vipassana, the mindfulness tradition. So our main job is to observe afflictions, that's the main job. Resolving other matters is secondary. Of course, as I said, sometimes we forget our main job and turn the secondary job into the main one. But we forget and then quickly remember. So when we observe afflictions for a while, turn inward for a while, long enough, and we'll gain true inner peace. True peace. We'll find our own nourishment. Zen meditation is real, and when your sustenance comes from Zen, naturally. I rarely feel the need to seek nourishment outside myself. In fact, there was a time when I didn't want to seek any hidden nourishment from the outside. Seeking hidden nourishment outside means I need the recognition of others. I need love, respect, favorable conditions, and pleasant feelings. That's nourishment from the outside. Of course, not constantly, but during the times I can do that, or rarely need it, only occasionally. A few needs, but most of them are small, easy to fulfill, and not too complicated, not requiring too much energy to fulfill. And when you have an inner life, you don't care about the outside anymore. Whether you seek it or not, it's not important, not overly emphasized. The words or actions of that person aren't too important. Whether the circumstances are favorable or adverse. Before practicing, we are very sensitive and care a lot. Every action, every word of others, every way others treat us. But when we have an inner life, it's not important anymore. And when you no longer overemphasize that person, whatever they do, you won't feel suffering. It can't touch you. That's different. They can only move us or push us down when we see that as important. And we only see it as unimportant when we find an inner life. But if you don't have inner strength, haven't found inner peace, there's no way it won't be important. External influences. And when we seek less nourishment for the ego from the outside, then beautiful and ugly, right and wrong, high and low, noble and base no longer have value or meaning. Then the mind reaches a state of equanimity. Equanimity is accepting all objects without needing to like this or dislike that. That's the ultimate goal of practice. This mind is the Buddha mind, the Bodhisattva mind. Bodhisattvas achieve equal vision. If we say becoming a Buddha, it's too far off, let's just say achieving equanimity, a normal mind. So if someone praises you for entering deep meditation for hours, or sitting in meditation for hours, or having strong mindfulness, or achieving whatever, but you look back at your mind, and it's still very unstable, turbulent, changing like the weather, still liking this, hating that, wanting to approach this object and avoid that object, liking this job, not liking that job. If it's still so intensely discriminating and sensitive, your practice hasn't gone far. Even if that person was once your adversary, who wanted to destroy you, but when you achieve equanimity, you find yourself wanting to love that person, wanting to help them awaken instead of wanting to punish, attack, or criticize them. So, no matter what practice you do, what tradition you follow, I think the goal should be like that. You must have real qualities, and they must manifest in your current life. You can't say, I'm practicing now, and I'll get results in the next life or after I die. Who knows? How can you count on that? So, whether there are results or not, it must be now. It must manifest even if it's not perfect. But it must be of the same color and quality. It must have something lovely, something gentle, something yielding, something generous, something compassionate. Then people will believe you're bearing fruit in your practice. Because the fruits are in those qualities, not in sitting in meditation for hours, not in having a very long period of practice, not in reading many sutras. Those are just means. The result is still transforming your mind and character. So, in the things I've shared with you today about the imbalances we experience, from outward focus to inward focus, activity and stillness, self-benefit and benefiting others, try to adjust your attitude and arrange your life so that each day it progresses towards the most balanced state possible. You can't achieve balance immediately, but every day must move in that direction. Only then can we find peace and happiness, and those around us will inherit the benefits of our efforts. They are also waiting for our blossoming. So, once we've committed to cultivation, we must cultivate thoroughly. People go up the mountains to get agar wood. If they extract agar wood, why should we only extract firewood? If others' practice bears fruit, why do we look down on ourselves? Why don't we make our practice fruitful? Where are we stuck? Is it the method of practice or the attitude? Is our effort sufficient? Is our attitude correct? And is our desire to change ourselves strong enough? Thank you for listening. Now we have 45 minutes for you to ask questions about this topic. Naturally, a good question from you can open up insights for others. Please, madam. Most of us, when we look at someone, we look at their shortcomings, mistakes, weaknesses, and along with that, an attitude that is not pleasant. That is, we react, we look down on them, we generate afflictions. So, the first piece of advice is to only focus on their strengths first. When we focus on strengths, we will respect them, find it easier to approach them, and find it easier to love them more. But that's just the initial stage. When our inner strength is sufficient, we must see the whole picture of a person, which of course includes both strengths and weaknesses. So the issue here is our attitude when we see those shortcomings. What is our state of mind? If our heart is filled with love, compassion, pity, and a desire to help, but it has to be exactly like that. And to be exact, we must have constant mindfulness to observe our psychological state. If it unfolds exactly like that, then we should continue to look at that person's weaknesses to help them. That means we've moved into the bodhisattva stage, or the stage of benefiting others, or altruism. But if our heart is still troubled, still reacting, still annoyed, still demanding, still criticizing, commenting, and judging, then we should go back to cultivating ourselves or just focus on the strengths, just like when we look at ourselves. So in the initial stage, when we lack confidence, people advise us to look at our strengths and talents. But when we are stable and secure, we must see the whole picture, our entire being, which includes our weaknesses, clumsiness, and afflictions. But our attitude now must be a correct one. That means joyfully accepting, embracing, and transforming them, not to eliminate or punish them. Thank you for the question. Please, another question. Venerable Master, dear Sangha, I've noticed that in the process of my life, perhaps sensitivity is inherent in my nature, and perhaps my life experiences have also given me sensitivity. I feel I have a little of that, but I've noticed that over the past few decades, my sensitivity has brought benefits. But now I feel that it might not be beneficial if my sensitivity keeps increasing every day. Today I ask you, Master, if I retain the sensitivity that I already have, can you guide me in my cultivation regarding my sensitivity? Thank you. Sensitivity is, first of all, the quick and agile grasping of the mind to receive information. And our mind works very quickly to make an assessment of whether it is as beneficial or detrimental to the ego, and then it produces an emotional reaction, like or dislike, accept or reject, approach or avoid. That's what we call sensitivity. Sometimes the mechanism of sensitivity is genetic. When we are born, we already have that trait. But mostly it's due to the environment, especially those with depression. I'm just talking about the general condition. People with depression are very sensitive. Just a reminder, and they think you're attacking them. Just hearing some unfavorable information from the outside about the weather or security, they panic. They think war or an earthquake is coming. Their mental activity is very intense. They can amplify information 100 or 1,000 times in an instant. They're very sensitive. Sensitivity easily leads to hurt. Sensitive people are easily hurt because they live more on the emotional side than the rational side. Not less. The advantage of sensitivity is that it's easy to connect and catch the frequency with others, to understand and empathize, because they focus on the other person. They observe more carefully, so they grasp the other person relatively easier than other normal people. And as I said, sensitive people with a tendency to depression think that every move of the people around them is affecting them. So they react very strongly. The benefit of sensitivity is only that much, but the damage is a lot. Sensitivity makes us insecure, with little chance to live with ourselves, living more with the scene and the other person. Sensitivity makes us not see the other person accurately because our minds embroider it. And sensitivity makes us handle situations more emotionally than rationally. So we have to know how to master our sensitivity, but it's very difficult, not easy. Just now, I heard you say that you want to keep that sensitivity. That sounds very comfortable and free. It means you want to keep it. You keep it. You want to let go. You let go. Is it easy? Sometimes you don't want to keep it, and it still stays with you. So my experience is no different. How can we continuously and promptly observe everything we receive through our senses? What do our eyes see? What do our hands hear? What does our tongue say? What does our nose smell? What does our body touch? What is our mind intending and imagining? Know everything and start having internal reactions. Know those reactions too. Only when you observe it, it won't grow big. It won't develop. But it will only stop at the level you just discovered. Or it will gradually weaken under the energy of mindfulness or awakening. But if you don't detect it and let it form thoughts, words, and actions bursting out, then you can't detect it in time anymore. So I think people with a sensitive O gene won't lose it. Just practice. Keep turning inward. Keep cutting back on outward focus. Then at some point you will use O, your sensitivity effectively and beneficially. But now, if you use your will to suppress it, reminding yourself not to be too sensitive, it's not enough. It won't solve it. Only the power of mindfulness and awakening can promptly observe and follow the process of life, of a sensitive episode. Then you can control it. Thank you, child. Yes, Namo Buddha. I respectfully bow to you, Master, and to the assembly. After a period of practice, I feel that I'm very bad. I used to think my mind was okay, but now I see that it's very bad, but I feel happy. So I respectfully ask you, Master, to teach me about keeping a balanced mind. Does it mean I have to accept the relativity of life as the Buddha taught, that we must follow the middle way? Sorry, let me ask about each part in detail. There are many things that are a bit strange. You said that now you feel you're worse after practicing. Yes, but you're happy. How do you explain this? Because before I practiced, I didn't see that I had any mistakes. I just insisted that I was right. But the more I practice, Master, the more I turn to my mind, and when I look inward, I see mistakes, like overthinking things. For example, when I meet someone, instead of thinking about them, I look or speculate based on my imagination, not on reality. So I accept that. I accept it. Master, does that bring you happiness? Then my next question, Venerable Master, you teach us to keep our minds balanced. I think I accept the relativity of life. Is that right, Master? I'm grateful. Is life relative or absolute? It depends on how you see it. Life is like that. It's neither relative nor absolute. But if your mind is still in a relative state with greed, anger, and delusion, you'll see life as relative. But if you have the mind of a Buddha or Bodhisattva, this world is nirvana. Because your minds are in nirvana, peaceful and free from suffering, you see this world as incredibly beautiful, like nirvana. I repeat, as our minds are, so we perceive reality. Once, Su Dongpo, a renowned writer and poet of the Song dynasty, considered one of the 8 great masters of the Tang and Song dynasties, was very talented and deeply knowledgeable about Buddhism. Su Dongpo was close friends with Zen Master Phoryin. One day, Su Dongpo visited Jinshan Temple to drink tea and discuss the Dharma with Zen Master Phoryin, as he often did in his free time. While drinking tea, Su Dongpo suddenly asked Zen Master Phoryin, "What do you think of me?" Phoryin smiled and replied, "You are dignified like a Buddha." Su Dongpo was overjoyed. Seeing this, Phoryin asked, Then what do you think of me? Dongpo, seeing Foyin in his dark brown robe, plump and round, retorted, "You look like a pile of cow dung." Foyin remained silent. So Dongpo returned home, still filled with happiness, and told his sister, Su Xiaomei, the whole story. He was still smug, saying, "Old Yin always gets the better of me. But this time I finally stumped him." Su Xiaomei scoffed. "This time you've lost badly." So Dongpo asked, "How have I lost?" "He couldn't even answer me," she replied. "Foyin sees you as a Buddha, but you see him as cow dung. Foyin has attained the mind of Buddha, so he sees everyone as a Buddha. But what is your mind like? We're not Foyin everyone. We're Su Dongpo, seeing cow dung everywhere. All of us are like that. As long as we have afflictions, we'll see people we dislike, people who should be excluded, people who deserve punishment, and evil people. In my book, Understanding the Heart, I wrote 4 lines of verse. Adapt to circumstances. Don't force your will. Keep your mind, not the scene. When the mind is at peace, the scene is also at peace. When you turn inward and find true peace, the scene no longer matters. As I said before, adapt to circumstances. You can only adapt when you see that it doesn't affect you, that it's not too important. Adapt to circumstances. Don't force your will. Keep your mind, not the scene. Even now, I still recite that mantra, reminding myself to focus on the mind, not the scene. There are times when my mindfulness isn't strong enough, and I tend to emphasize the circumstances. Then I have to remind myself to keep my mind, not the scene. Because when the mind is at peace, everything looks peaceful. Thank you for the question. Venerable Master, dear Sangha, I came to the Dharma a bit late. After finishing everything with my children and family. But since I learned about Buddhism, I've seen many benefits in myself. Adapting to circumstances, we can only adapt when we see it. Doesn't affect us. It's not too important. Adapt to circumstances. Don't force your will. Keep your mind, not the scenery. Even now, I still repeat that mantra, reminding myself to focus on the mind, not the scenery. There are times when I feel my mindfulness isn't strong enough. I tend to overemphasize the circumstances, so I have to remind myself to keep my mind, not the scenery. Because when the mind is at peace, everything looks peaceful. A peaceful mind, a peaceful scene. Peaceful. Thank you for the question. Venerable Master, Venerable Sangha, I came to Buddhism a bit late, after completing everything with my children and family. But since I learned about Buddhism, I've seen many benefits in myself. Before I started practicing, I had a lot of anger, just like you mentioned, because I cared too much for others. I gave a lot, but often didn't receive the same in return, so I'd blame fate. But when I followed the Buddha's teachings, and especially when I practiced meditation, following the 4 foundations of mindfulness, I learned many virtues that I found wonderful, especially patience. Within the virtue of patience, Like in the patience parameter, there are 5 aspects, such as not seeking to retaliate when someone offends us, not seeking revenge or finding ways to get back at them. We should love them. But the last virtue, the 5th, is to actively befriend the person who harmed us. I haven't been able to do this because I'm afraid that when someone is angry, I'm not afraid for myself, but when people are consumed by anger, befriending them might cause them to create bad karma. For example, I'm not talking about fellow practitioners, but about my own family. My husband doesn't like me going to the temple, but my going is my business. I go and still complete all my tasks. Sometimes when we're happy, we listen to the Dharma together, but before I practiced, he would argue and say things. And he liked it when I argued back. But now that I'm learning patience, when he says something, I don't argue back. And he says, what kind of master teaches people to not argue back when they're being cursed at? But I don't say anything, I just stay silent. For example, if he's watching TV, I'll watch with him. But then he gets bored and starts cursing, saying, since I started going to the temple and listening to that master, I don't argue back when someone curses at me. What kind of person is that? He's trying to make me snap. But then I say, I must have owed you a lot in a past life, so just keep cursing me. The more you curse me, the sooner I'll be free of karma. He says, so you want me to die soon? It's very difficult. That's my situation today, because when you were lecturing, you talked about equanimity. I used to be a woman who dedicated myself a lot to my family. I used to hold a position, but when I had a family, I devoted myself entirely. Now that my children have wives and husbands, and I go to the temple, meaning I'm done with my duties to them, so they can't say anything about family matters. But he doesn't like me going to the temple. But since I discovered the temple, I go every night, or I go to meditation retreats. He says, why are you so obsessed with the temple? What's so fascinating about it? May I ask? How many days a week do you go to the temple? I attend 3 Dharma classes. And on days when you don't have Dharma classes, you still go to the temple. So you go every day, only in the evening. So that's why he's scolding you. Please, Master, tell me how I can then practice the 5th virtue, how to befriend him. Because every time I try to make peace with him, he starts creating trouble again. Thank you. So you've managed to practice with everyone else, but there's one person you haven't been able to practice with, right? Actually, I understand your feelings, your need to practice. As you said, you feel it's late, and you've grasped the value store that are so precious that you never knew before in your life. So, your eagerness and desire to learn and practice are very high. But you must realize that he isn't in the same mindset as you. He hasn't reached this point. He's used to You're taking care of everything at home. He's used to you being involved. He's used to the feeling of you being there. You're cooking delicious food for him. Suddenly, you switch to vegetarian food, or even no food at all. So, he's bound to react. That's normal. If you expect him not to react, that's a mistake. Reacting is normal. If he's generous and thinks about you more, giving you the opportunity to practice in your own way, that's someone who's thoughtful, and those people are rare. But when he reacts, it's not that he hates the temple, but he sees that you're going to the temple too often, and he feels like he's no longer valuable. You're always talking about this master and that master. Now you're talking about master. How can he not be upset? I was eager to judge the master, which meant I lacked understanding in two key areas. First, I didn't understand the mindset of someone new to the spiritual path, like myself. I expected immediate acceptance, which was unrealistic. Second, I wasn't skilled enough to balance my responsibilities at home and at the temple. You've sacrificed for decades, thinking it's enough, but your family is used to things a certain way. Of course, you've sacrificed for decades and think that's enough, but those at home are used to a certain feeling. If you want them to adjust, you have to ease them into it gradually. But you might think, I only have a few years left. Why not just go all in and think you're not taking anything with you? Peace at home greatly supports your practice. If there's turmoil, if they're angry and suffering, you can't practice either. So you have to help them. We don't know when we'll be able to benefit others. So if we can help now, we should without delay. Earlier you mentioned not retaliating when your husband attacks you. But I don't believe you were truly a blooming in those moments. Even without retaliation, your attitude might have made him feel like you didn't want to talk to him, that he's unenlightened, that he's just a regular person with greed, anger, and delusion, while you're a practitioner, that you don't even want to look at him, and he'll tire himself out. Even if you don't say it, the other person senses that you're building a wall, devaluing them. If only the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha have value in your heart, you're creating conflict, a war. Your practice hasn't yielded results, and your loved ones suffer endlessly. So you need to regain balance. Instead of going to the temple 7 days a week, go 4 days and spend the other 3 at home talking with your husband, guiding his practice, sharing, or going out somewhere, or spending time with your children and grandchildren. Infuse your practice into those activities so your loved ones recognize that you're a practitioner. When I went through Hai Quang, returning from Myanmar, I saw a picture hanging in the airport. It was a picture of the tips of colored pencils, dozens of them, all identical. It had an English caption, "How do they see you? How do you stand out?" Visually, they all look the same. So what makes you different? Everyone practices, but what you cultivate well is generosity. more tolerance and compassion. It's not enough to just grit your teeth and endure other people's unkind words. You need to open your heart, accept their weaknesses, and help them. You have to think of your husband as someone to be pitied. He hasn't understood the Dharma or practiced like you. He hasn't sat and listened to masters or attended retreats. How can he behave like you? So you have to come down to his level, like Train Kong's son said. Lean your life down to see a love affair through. Just look silently without speaking. You might not speak, but if your face is still a bit grumpy or you're internally defiant, look with loving kindness and love and transform your husband into an object for practice. A theme, a coin that you must overcome so that when you enter nirvana, you can go somewhere fulfilled and happy. I know you love your husband and family, but you're just very enthusiastic about practice right now. But if your practice causes your loved ones to suffer, you won't be happy. So you need to realize that you have a lot of responsibility to your loved ones. Let your practice blossom and offer it to them. Thank you. Hello, and Venerable Masters and everyone, I have 3 questions. My question is, suppose I have a problem with someone, but currently I haven't cultivated true equanimity and clarity. If for a certain period I ignore that person, treating them like air, will this temporary practice cause me to develop selfishness later instead of equanimity? Second question, on behalf of my friend sitting next to me, besides mental training, my friend wants to take a course on should you learn a musical instrument like piano or guitar to train your body. And the third question from my friend and I is, does the Master have the address for a short-term or long-term Vipassana meditation course or class? Because we don't know exactly which location is most suitable and best for us to study. That's all. Thank you. When you can't approach someone you think is unpleasant, remember it's just your perception, because your thoughts can change. A temporary solution is to avoid contact with that person, but don't adopt an attitude of indifference, because indifference is a negative attitude. Temporarily avoiding someone is also a negative attitude, but it's far from indifference. Indifference is a very low attitude. It's an attitude of contempt and scorn. It's underestimating the other person. When you adopt that attitude, you've dug a trench. You've dug it so deep that when you want to rebuild the relationship, they might not agree. Once you adopt that attitude, the chance of re-establishing the relationship is very low, so you should just temporarily avoid them, or if you accidentally approach them, keep it brief. Don't delve too deeply into each other's stories, and don't add any more attitudes. You have to believe that one day your mind will be stable and peaceful, and you'll see this person differently. You'll see their charm, because many people find them charming. It's not like everyone in the world finds them unpleasant. So you have to believe that when you get back on your feet, When your mind is truly peaceful and balanced, you'll see this person in a different light. Attitude is very important. Regarding a Vipassana meditation course, as far as I know, there are quite a few in Vietnam. You can ask Google. Google will show you the 10-day courses. As far as I know, they're held in Dong Nai, Tu Duc, Kiu Chai, and a few other places. There are also many types of Vipassana meditation, specializing in observing the body, observing feelings, observing the mind, observing the surrounding objects. You can try all 4 traditions and then choose the one that suits you best. But at your age, thinking about an intensive 10-day meditation course of Vipassana, I think that's good news. You'll gain something to change your life, your perspective. Because when your perspective changes, your life will also change. As for the second question, the difficult one, what musical instrument to learn? I'm not sure. Ask someone else. Thank you. Homage to the Buddha Shakyamuni. Venerable Master, dear audience, I would like to share my truth as of today. During my practice, until now, like a few years ago, I realized who is the master and who is the guest. But then, for the past 2 or 3 years, it's been stuck at the point where I know who the master is and who the guest is. But I don't see any progress. And now, the problem is that I think I'm too familiar. I'm sorry to say that whenever I hear someone say something, I feel like I already know it, and I really do know it. And when I look at something, I think that when my 6 senses make contact, I stop right at the initial thought. But it doesn't stop there. As soon as I see that flower, I immediately know if it's beautiful or not. It automatically distinguishes like that. And I know it, but I can't stop it. I can't stop it. As soon as I hear something, I feel like I understand it. And now, when I see someone, I just recognize them. And I don't have any awareness. I'm sorry to say that when I see a master lecturing, I feel like I already know it, and I know it exactly as the master is saying. It's the same with every master. And I'm very eager to listen to lectures. I listen all day long. I'm not sure. And when I practice, I seem to practice very devotedly. And I feel like I love the Buddha more than my lover. I'm addicted to that extent. But I don't see any progress. So I don't know if I'm going wrong somewhere. Please, Master, have mercy and guide me specifically. Thank you. Master, I think you've studied Zen Master Yongjia Swanju a lot. You've researched many Chinese Zen masters. There are verses about enlightenment songs, including 2 lines that I really like. It says, eliminate afflictions, increase illness, moving towards true suchness is all wrong. The afflictions we want to eliminate, that desire, that's greed, and eliminating it is anger. If you cultivate and bring that in is greed, and eliminating it is anger. If you cultivate by bringing, how can you achieve enlightenment if you bring greed and anger into it? If you want to eliminate afflictions, the afflictions, they only get bigger. It's like adding illness to illness. For example, if you're feeling angry and you want to resolve it immediately, then the anger and the desire to resolve it are both forms of anger. Instead of learning to observe and embrace your anger, you want to eliminate it immediately. That's just adding anger to anger. Moving towards true suchness is all wrong, meaning wanting to achieve enlightenment and nirvana. No matter what you desire, it's still a desire. Sometimes we don't want fame, profit, beauty, or wealth, but we want enlightenment. That's still the ego's desire. The desire hasn't changed. Only the object of desire has changed. It's no different from wanting other things, but this desire creates less karma. Still, it's still a desire, standing on the ego to establish something. So it's all wrong, it's all mistakes, going down the wrong path. I see someone who wants to specialize, to go deep and far, based on my experience and what I've learned from the Buddha's teachings. He often taught that we shouldn't practice alone, but within a group, so the group can promptly detect any mutations, mistakes, missteps in your practice that you might not be able to see yourself. Secondly, you must be close to an enlightened master, a master with successful experience. In that practice for at least 5 years, because in those 5 years, it's very easy to make mistakes in your attitude towards practice. Even if you understand the practice itself, you have a firm grasp, but your attitude in practice is wrong in every detail. The slightest deviation is wrong. So the heart of practice lies in how to avoid developing greed and anger, which is the right path, like Zen Master Senkan in the first lesson of the Faith Mind Sutra is, the great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. It's not difficult. Just don't fall into greed and anger, liking and disliking, choosing between love and hate. That's achieving the path. So, in the process of our practice, when we practice, first, when we listen to Dharma talks, and our minds automatically close off. We don't want to listen anymore because we're being overwhelmed with knowledge. The experiences that practitioners share with us are too much, meaning too much research. So when there's too much research, the mind starts to work dynamically. It thinks that the knowledge we're hearing from a Dharma master is similar to the knowledge we've already heard, but in fact, it's not the same. It seems the same, but in reality it's only similar, slightly similar in a few details, but the essence might not be the same. For example, people often say that every religion is good. That statement is true, but each religion takes people to a different level of enlightenment. You can't say that every religion is the same. One person shares their experience, each person has a different experience, so you can't say that you already know everything unless you're fully enlightened then you can know everything that people are about to say. If your mind guesses without truly being fully enlightened, then this is a mental block. That is, your information receiving mechanism is exhausted. It's no longer working well, and this will block enlightenment, because to be enlightened you have to open up. If you cling to the second or third step, how can you get to the fourth, let alone the 10th? You have to release everything that has been put into you. I really like the saying of the Chinese martial arts legend, Bruce Lee. He said, his martial art, it's like a sculptor, they carve away to become masterpieces instead of adding to it. A human being is enough. Then it has enough qualities of wisdom and compassion. Nothing more needs to be added. In fact, now you have to take some out, chisel away, eliminate some, then the way you listen will become pure again. The way you listen now is no longer pure. Listening with discrimination, listening with prejudice, listening without absorbing change is no longer pure. So, according to me, you should, if you are researching something, or you should stop and instead spend more time on mindfulness retreats. Attend day or several week retreats with masters who have successful experiences. So they can help you point out little by little the mistakes on your path of practice. And suppose you make mistakes, you have afflictions. As I said, it's also a matter of whether you know how to rebuild mindfulness.